So which is better for insulation, down or synthetic, for sleeping bags, quilts, jackets, whatever? So my opinion is different than 99% of the people out there that you will hear. Uh, Almost any video you look at in this, to answer this question, is going to tell you that down is better. My opinion is, in my opinion, synthetic is better. And the reason I say that is uh, two things. One of the things is, great thing about down is it compresses, and one of the bad things about down is it compresses. So as good as it does. And the other thing is, everybody talks about. You'll hear all these people talking about cotton kills. Cotton gets wet and all that kind of stuff, and don't wear cotton clothing because cotton kills. But so does down. Um, the really major downside to down, whether it's a jacket, sleeping bag, or quilt, is if it gets wet, it will lose all of its insulation value. Versus synthetic, where if it gets wet, you're going to have a miserable night, but it will still provide some insulation. Um, and Another thing about down versus synthetic is, like, say, the puffy jackets and everything. If you're wearing a down jacket and you get a burn hole in it, or especially you get a tear in it, um, some of the down will start falling out. You will lose some of the insulation values. Now, you know, there's repairs. You can tape it up. You can do this, do that, but you can still lose some of your insulation value. Whereas a synthetic, in the same situation, you tear a hole in the shell, or burn a hole in the shell or whatever, you're still going to retain your insulation value. And so that's another advantage. But the big thing with the sleeping bags is I've had my sleeping bag get wet on many occasions. Um, Part of it, because just sleeping on the ground, or even if you're, like, say you're tarp camping and you sleep. When I talk about sleeping on the ground, I'm just like out in the open, just sleeping on the ground out in the open. So you got the moisture from the ground, you got the moisture from the dew and all that kind of stuff. So your sleeping bag is definitely going to get wet in that situation. But say you're tarp camping and you got a piece of plastic for a ground cloth or something like that, keeping your bag nice and dry. Well, it's very possible, and I've had it happen several times, that throughout the night, with you moving around while you're sleeping, either your sleeping bag will end up off of that plastic, or the plastic will get turned under, and either way, your bag is going to get exposed to that. And with tarp camping too, in a real downpour, you could end up water just kind of running under your tarp and all that kind of stuff. Having a ground cloth that's a bathtub floor, that helps with that situation. But there's always. I was camping out in the Adirondacks, and crossing a river, handing the bags across as we were coming across this log. A friend of mine, I didn't consider him a friend at the time, but he dropped my whole backpack in the river, and I had done stuff to keep everything dry and everything, so I came out good, and my sleeping bag and all my gear was still dry. But that could have been a miserable situation with a soaking wet sleeping bag. I've seen some of the famous YouTube backpackers end up having to bail out on their trip because they're using a down bag and the bag gets wet. That leads into a very dangerous situation. In the middle of the night, coming down, especially the weather's bad, visibility's not great. It's easy to get turned around in the woods. Um, you can end up in a survival situation now because you're lost, you're cold, you're wet, your sleeping bag, your main source of survival in the cold, your sleeping bag is useless because it's wet. Uh, I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Yeah, if my synthetic bag gets wet, it's going to be a miserable night, but at least I can stay put and make it through the night. Um, I just don't want to have to worry. If all you do is car camping and all that stuff, then hey, you could just bail out to your car 10 feet away. That's one thing. But if you're going out, especially by yourself, out in more remote areas, and then your whole basically survival, because the exposure to the weather will kill you before anything else. Your whole survival is dependent on a piece of gear that is totally useless if it gets wet, and with the moisture from the ground, with rain, with dew, with crossing a creek, so many things that can go wrong to get your bag wet, and I just don't. I'm just not willing to take that chance. So my synthetic bag weighs a little bit more, but even with that, so I haven't used a down bag in the winter time and everything, so I don't know. But in my synthetic bags, I sleep with just my underwear, or maybe if I got a lightweight pair of shorts, I'll wear my shorts. But that's it. I don't have a t-shirt. I don't have socks. I don't have anything on my legs. And I sleep like that in my synthetic sleeping bag in the winter time. And the only time I will put on anything else is once it starts getting into the teens and below. I'll put on a lightweight synthetic long sleeve shirt, and that's it. That's the only extra clothing I will add. So, yes, a down sleeping bag is a lot lighter than a synthetic sleeping bag, but like I said, I haven't used a down sleeping bag in the wintertime, but every video I've ever watched of anybody using a down sleeping bag in the wintertime, they're wearing, they got sleep clothes, they got extra, long underwear, they got extra, heavy socks. A lot of them will wear their puffy jacket, and I do wear a sock hat in the wintertime, I forget about that. But a lot of them will wear their puffy jacket and all that kind of stuff. So if you're having to bring, yeah, your down sleeping bag is lighter, but if you're having to bring, and compresses more, but if you're having to bring a full set of clothes to wear at night to stay warm in the sleeping bag, now with the added space it's going to take up in your bag, and the added uh, weight, really, are you gaining that much? When you factor all that into it, are you really gaining that much to carry a sleeping bag that if it gets wet it's totally useless? I don't know. I just don't see it in my personal opinion. I do believe, however, if you like synthetic, if you've used synthetic and not had any problems, I think it's just a problem waiting to happen at some point if you're out there enough. But if you like synthetic, I mean, if you like down, like the benefits of down, cool. Then for you, the down is the best thing in the world, and you should continue using it. My experience, the things I've done over my lifetime camping, synthetic's the only way to go. Whether it's a jacket or sleeping bag or whatever, synthetic's definitely the way to go. I just wanted to provide a different opinion. It seems like everybody's on. If you look on YouTube or blogs or whatever, it seems like everybody's just copy and pasting. The down is better because of this. And everybody's using it because they just get online and see, well, that guy and that guy's using down, so it must be the way to go. I just wanted to offer a different opinion for somebody that's out there that's new, that's getting into it, just a different perspective, and then that person can weigh what everybody else is saying, what I'm saying, and kind of figure out what's best for them. So that's, hope this helps.